Today we are going to show you how to build this 3-tiered planter. It uses just 3 cedar fence pickets and 56 inches of a 2x4. So if you're going to get 2x4, you're going to cut it up on the table saw into 2x2s and 1x2s. We're going to give you the dimensions of that. If you don't have a table saw, just buy a 1x2 and a 2x2 and then just make the boxes standard. Obviously, you're not going to be able to put the cuts on if you don't have a table saw. Anyway, I'm going to show you right now. Let's get to it. Okay, so here we are with our fence picket. For this, you're gonna wanna make sure that you got one that's pretty straight and doesn't have a cup in it, or at least very little amount of a cup. So I have the measurements designed for this for the Americans that have the dog ears on the top, which I don't have. So you guys can adjust the measurements accordingly, but I'm going to have a couple inches of extra that's to be waste because I wanna make sure we can get it all out of one fence picket. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna rip it down to 5 1/4 so it's nice and consistent. Okay, now we're gonna go over to the miter saw and chop it into pieces. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna see if I have any bad spots on my board, because if I do, I'm gonna want to try to incorporate them into the bottom. I do not have any bad spots. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off the factory edge here. I do have some extra to play with, so I might as well make it nice and even here. So now I'm gonna measure over 18 3/4. Okay, that's the easy one. Okay, so now we are going to put our saw over to 45 degrees. Okay, so for my saw, I have the height here because I have a 12-inch blade, so I can do this way of cutting, which is my preference. But if your saw will not do that, then just leave it at 0, bevel that way to 45, and then you'll have to do it that way. So I'm back at 45, and I'm gonna make my first cut on the edge. Okay, now I'm going to flip the board. We're gonna do our short side pieces first. It's gonna be 5 1/4 short point to short point. If you're not sure on that, just go a little bit long. You can always slip it off later. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna flip it over. So the next one we're gonna do is going to be 20 inches. This one is long point to long point. Okay, then on this one, for safety reasons, I'm gonna have to go this way. Okay, so there's our pieces now. I'm just going to make sure everything fits here before I start assembling anything. So we want our insides to line up there. So everything looks pretty good. Okay, so you can't really tell. Actually, I'm glad that this happened on camera. This side I cut a little bit too small, so I kind of goofed on that, but that's okay. It'll still go together, and then we'll fix it after the fact. Okay, so now it's time to put it together. Okay, so for building this box, I'm going to use 2 different kinds of glue. Of course, it's unreasonable to ask you guys to do the same thing. I'm going to use your traditional Type Bond 3, and then for the end grains, I'm going to use this PL Premium, which in Canada is made by LePage, and in the US it's made by Loctite. We'll link it below. It's going to work much better on the end grain because it doesn't get absorbed in. If you don't want to use that, that's fine. Just put your Type Bond 3 onto your end grains, let it sit for 10 minutes. Do it on all of them, and then come back and do it, and then hopefully it'll work, because if you don't do that, it gets absorbed into the end grain, and it's right next door to useless in my opinion. I'm going to start by putting the front and the back on. And for this, I'm just going to use 1 1/4 inch 18 gauge brad nails. Okay, I'm going to take one of my ends. I am also keeping all of the roundovers, because I put them through the table, so I'm putting all the roundovers at the same. In this case, it's going to be the top. It won't matter after the profile is put on. But if you don't want to do the profile, then you want to make sure they're the same. Okay, so for the bottom here, I think I'm just going to use the Type Bond 3, because I only got one end grain at the bottom. Okay, first I'm going to start with nailing the bottom in. Then I'm going to go to either the front or the back, whichever it is, and I'm going to put a nail through the bottom, through the top. Being very careful where to put my nails, and you'll see why in a bit. Not putting any nails in the middle. Okay, and here's our little bit of space here, because this is the one that was a little bit on the short side. Okay, I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now I'm not going to worry about any of the glue on the inside, but I'm going to go around the outside and make sure I don't have any squeeze out. If the Type Bond 3 squeezes out, just wipe it off. Water soluble. If the PL Premium squeezes out, just be careful not to get it on your skin because it's oil based and it's pretty hard to get off. What I like to do if I get a bunch of it is I let it dry for a couple hours and then I just scrape it off. But don't let it dry all the way because you'll never get it off. We got everything nailed together, so the glue is going to be drying as I'm going here. I'm going to get my palm sander and I'm going to even this out. So I'm going to go around and kind of clean it up and then we'll put the profile on it. Okay, so I'm going to go around and sand this right now. If you want to, you can do the filling in of the nail holes before you do this. As you can see now, it's nice and even. Cedar, so it sands really easily. Okay, now let's put the profile on it. Okay, so here's basically what we got left over from our 56-ish inches of a 2x4. So 14, 14, 14. These are all 2x2s. So you set the table saw to 1.5. So it's 1.5 by 1.5. And then the last 14-inch piece you cut into 3/4-inch strips. Okay, so there's your 1x2s. All right, so the reason that we've done this at this point like this is for safety, because these things only need to be about half this size, but I didn't want to put that short of a piece through the table saw. So now we're going to cut everything on the miter saw to length, and we're going to put points on everything. Before you do this step, make sure you build your boxes first. Because you're going to measure your boxes, so that's going to be about 6.5. So I'm going to add a 1/16 of an inch just to make it so you don't have to wedge them in there. Okay, so I'm going to measure over 6.5, then plus 1, 9/16. Okay, so just make sure your blade's on the right side. All right, so I'm going to be on this side here and this side on this one. Okay, then we're going to take 4 of these, and we're going to have to set a stop block for this. Okay, so now I'm going to tilt the saw to 30 degrees. It doesn't have to be precise, just as long as it's the same on everything. Okay, so now I'm going to line the blade up a little bit more than halfway. That way we know the cuts are going to go all the way around. So I'm a little bit higher than halfway. Okay, now I'm going to put a stop block in. This is very important for this. Okay, so now we're just going to cut like so. And turn it. And there you have your point. So I'm going to do that 3 more times. Okay, so now we got our other 2 here, and we're just going to do the same thing on these ones, but then we're going to do something else. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take our pointed end and we're going to put it up against the stop block, and we're going to do the other side, but we're going to have to move it over a smidge because we've taken some meat off. Now the reason why we did that is because it's just safer, because we're going to be snipping it down. Okay, so we've left this purposefully a little bit long, and now we're going to cut it to size. So now that we're done making our 30-degree cuts, we're just going to put the saw back to 0. And then I'm going to measure over 6 inches from the point. Now it doesn't have to be precise because we're going to put up another stop block. So I'm pretty close to 6 inches, might be off a smidge, does not matter. Okay, so line it up with the blade. Okay, and then the last cuts we're going to make are going to be cutting the long ones down to size. Okay, and we're going to make these long ones 13.5 from the point. Once again, does not have to be precise, just make sure they're all the same. Okay, there's all of our pieces. Okay, so next step we're going to do, we're going to take our little 1x2s here and we're going to put pocket holes in them. If you don't have a pocket hole jig, we're going to link to this on Amazon. This will do everything you need it to do. I have a fancier one and I still use this all the time just because it's easy. So make sure you got it on the right setting, 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so we got all those done. So at this point, you're going to want to sand everything down. Okay, so now what we're going to do here, we're going to take this piece here, and we're going to measure down about 2 1/8 inches. Doesn't matter if it's exactly the same as mine, it just matters if it's the same on all of yours. Okay, then we're just going to line up our pieces here. So 2 long ones, and then we'll take 2 short ones, and we'll just do that, and get ourselves a square of some sort. Okay, so then we're just going to draw the line right across all 4 of them. And then we're going to take one of these pieces and put it on the bottom here and see how far up we are. it's about 2.5. So I'm just going to measure up 2.5 from over here. And then I'm going to do the same thing and draw a line right across. Now they're all marked. So that lines up with that because we want them across the bottom to match. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to get ourselves a scrap piece of wood that I got here. I'm going to just line it up like that and take the piece of wood and clamp it in here just to keep this from pushing up as we drive the screw in there. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of glue here. You can use Type-On 3 if you want. I'm just using PL Premium because it doesn't get absorbed into the end grain as much. And if you want to, just to make it a little bit more stable while you're doing this, you can throw a second clamp on there. Now I'm just going to use the angle for all of them. That way I don't have to take it out. I only have one drill with me. The other two are in the car. I don't feel like going to get them. Okay, make sure your clutch setting is, somewhere around 9 or 10 so you don't over torque it. Because you'll end up wrecking a piece of wood and you have to start over. Okay, so then we're going to take one of our long ones here and we're going to line it up with the bottom. Okay, now we're going to move right along here. I guess we'll just go right across. So I got to line up a piece here. You don't have to really measure this one. You just want to be even with that because it's just a cross brace, but you want it to look like you planned it out. Okay, so now, as you can see, my mark is on the wrong side, so I'm just going to have to go over and put it over to the other side. Doesn't matter if all these lines are on here because we're going to paint them anyway. Okay, there you go. Just make sure that everything's lined up here before the glue dries. And then do another one. Okay, so here are our completed ones. All I did was I just spray painted them with some Rust-Oleum, flat black. You can use whatever paint you want, of course. And then for the boxes, I did use teak oil on them just to make them a little nicer. You don't have to do that, of course, either. Now, the thing that I like about this design is that you don't necessarily, you probably should put a couple screws in it, but we'll just put it together right now. So you kind of configure it however what space you want to have. Make sure your spaces are even. And then if you want to, just drive a couple screws through the bottom here just to hold them in place, and it's going to give it some lateral stability. Make sure you drill some drain holes in it. The reason why I like this design is because teak oil has to be applied every once in a while, at least once a year. And maybe you want to spray the legs again. So all you have to do is just take them apart. You can leave the plant in here and then just put the finish back on, put it back together again. So like I said at the beginning, 3-seater fence pickets, going to put you a little less than $12. Part of a 2x4, let's say they're $3, you're about $15. A little bit more maybe with the finish, but not much more than that. You could probably sell these for, let's say, $75. You guys tell me what you think you can get for them in your area, but it's a pretty nice planter. And of course, you're going to have the video on how to put the profile on afterwards. We're going to link on it over there. So if you're wondering why we didn't show you that, it's because we got a whole lot of video on that. All right, so please like and subscribe and leave us a comment, of course. And if you want to help us out with the cost of all of the production that we have to do, then please use our Buy Me a Coffee link below. Okay, so just so you guys get a bit of a sneak peek as to what's on deck, that one's coming next. But for right now, we're going to leave you with a link to the video for the profile right there, and a link to our other 3-tier planter from last year right there. All right, thanks for watching.